This conference will now be recorded.
So I'm going to offer apologies from Brother Len, because I suspect he is currently in transit from Kanab, Utah, back to Vegas airport. I know he has a a red-eye flight tonight back to New York and then Connecticut. I know that because I just spent 3 or 4 days with him and his family in Kanab. It was a bucket list trip for Len, who had never seen any of the national parks. And Kanab is about center between Zion and Bryce, that are kind of level with each other, and the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which is to the south. And in that triangle, Kanab is pretty much central. It's plus or minus an hour to each of the parks. So I went up and I drove up from where I live. It's about 500 miles. And thanks to Ken Anderson, I was able to stay in Phoenix overnight in an empty condo, and then I spent 2 days with Len. We went to Bryce and we went to the north rim of the Grand Canyon, where I had not been previously, and I thought it was really great, better than the south rim, where I have been 3 times. And it's a lot more experiential. And then I had to come back. Len went to Zion the first day, and he went to Zion again yesterday from 2 sides of the park. And yesterday he did a hike that's on my bucket list. He hiked on the Narrows, which is a slot canyon. If you're wondering what a slot canyon is, it is, if you saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're walking down towards the treasury, that's a slot canyon. You can almost, in places, you can almost touch both walls when you're standing. And there is a slot canyon in Zion, and you can hike up it, and a lot of times it's a riverbed, so there's water in it, and there was water in it yesterday. And Len said at times it was up to his thigh. And they hiked an hour and 50 minutes. He said he was ready to turn around, but his kids kept saying to him, no, we'll go around one more corner, we'll go around. And that's how it is when you get in those canyons, as Peter will attest. And you just wanted to do a little more and a little more. Anyway, he went up, came back, and when I spoke to him at about 10 o'clock, I think it was before 10 o'clock his time, because Len keeps late hours. He said, I'm really exhausted, I'm going to bed. So I haven't spoken to him since, but I'm really anxious to hear about that hike. I did try to convince them to do Angel's Landing, which is a hike there, which includes half of the hike is with chains, and you have to hold on to the chains. He wasn't too happy about that, so they did the Narrows instead. Anyway, that's just a quick travelogue. We have someone else who's joined us on the telephone. Who might that be?
I think it was just me calling back in. I dropped out. Jerry.
Okay. All right. We got you, Jerry. We got you. So we are hoping that Professor Bill may join us, but so far we don't see him. If he does come on, we'll give him some priority. But right now we have a nice small group, which is a bit of a pleasure. here's who I see on here right now. Jake, Dennis Correa, Jerry Pelfrey, Les Shelderup, Peter Kafka, Sylvester Mann, Thibault Lincecum, and Paul Frieda. Did I miss anybody? Okay. Thibault, how long do we have you for? Oh, it could be that he's not at the, oh, here he comes. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hi, hi, hi. How are you? How long do we have you for?
Oh, no specific amount of time till I
Okay.
get hungry for dinner.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't we kick off with you in case you get hungry or in case the kids come in and distract you. And
Yeah, I just picked them out a minute ago.
oh, I see.
I like the new haircut there, Tebow.
Yeah, I had 10 sessions of whole brain radiation and my hair started to fall out, so I shaved it.
Looks good.
It does. So it looks very good.
Yeah, it does. You look better than last time, which is great to say.
I also have fat cheeks because they had me on steroids during the radiation and made me very hungry. I gained 27 pounds in 25 days.
Wow. Wow. Did you need to? Were you underweight before?
I was an okay weight, but I could stand to gain some. I was 140. Now I'm 167.
Oh, 167, 140 was a little low. So that sounds like it was quite a blessing. We are hoping that Bill will join us, Professor Bill.
You want me to give him another call, Rick?
Yeah, if you like, tell him Tebow's on, okay?
Okay.
He had brain radiation about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it seems like he's doing pretty well. I mean, he's stabilized. He was going downhill quickly, and he seems to have stabilized pretty well. So, Tebow, why don't you continue and just bring us up to date
I'm sorry, I have to go. I'll be back later.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll catch up with you later. Bye. Okay. So I already know that when we see Tebow, we have to jump on him and get his information as quickly as we can and see how he is, etc., etc. He is he's truly Superman. I don't think there's anybody on this call, on this group, that I can remember since we started that has gone through as many different treatments as he's gone through. So it's really quite amazing. Okay, let me run through and see who would like some time today. Dennis, how would you like some time?
Oh, I don't need anything, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. Jerry Pelfrey. Oh, Jerry just left, but hopefully he'll be back. He looks like he's having some connection problems there. Les, would you like any time?
Just a quick question, yeah.
Okay. Peter, would you like some time?
Sort of, yeah. I'd like to have a little bit of conversation with Les about a third party.
Sure. Sylvester, would you like any time?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thibault will come back to, and Paul Frieda, I know you would like some time because we cut you off last time. So we will definitely, we're going to come to you next. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
I
guys,
remember.
we're going to need to keep tonight's call to need to cut it off very shortly after 8 o'clock because there's another call following this one. Just so you know.
Yeah, no, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. Yeah, we have. Thanks for reminding me, Jake. We are kicking off our multiple sclerosis virtual group tonight at 8:30. So any of you have friends who have MS, they can do exactly the same thing as you guys are doing here by joining our MS call, which will, for the time being, it's going to be once a month on the 4th Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern. So please spread the word. There's a shortage of support for MS, and since many MS people have mobility constrictions, this virtual group is kind of a really good thing for them, and so just let them know. Okay, Paul Frieda, why don't you tell us what was on your mind last week and see how we can help you.
Excuse me 1 second, Rick. Somebody else is joining the phone. Is that Jerry again?
John Appler here, Jake. How you doing?
Hi, John.
Hey, John. John, did you need any time today?
No, I don't. Thanks for asking, Rick.
Okay. And
Somebody else is joining the phone.
It's Jerry Pelfrey again. My Verizon phone signal up here is dropping out on me. I don't know why. Sorry.
It's probably the rains, Jerry. We've had some problems. There's a lot of rain in Phoenix, and there's a lot of rain down here. So, Jerry, did you need some time today?
Well, I would like it if possible, if I can stay online.
We'll come to you pretty quickly. But Paul Frieda, let's start with you.
Okay. A couple weeks ago, I think it was, I had an issue with pancreatic cancer. Last year, I think you may remember, there was a spot on my pancreas, and my oncologist noticed it with a routine CT scan. And what happened was it had grown from 5 millimeters to 1.1 centimeters. And anyway, I had what do you call it? An endoscopic ultrasound, and the doctor said that he couldn't really find anything. So he told me to have a MRI 1 year later, and I was a little late with it, but I've now had it, and he said that I look okay, but do an MRI another year from now. So that was a little scare, but everything's okay. And then the only other thing that's going on is I just had my blood work, and it came back great. My PSA is still undetectable, and my test, I'm on Lupron holiday almost a year now, and my testosterone in the last 2 months has gone from 90 to 150. So testosterone's coming back like you expect, and I don't feel anything different. I don't feel stronger or horny or anything like that. So I don't know, just it's good news, that I'm still undetectable, and I hope it'll stay that way for a while.
Well, I'd make a couple of comments on that, and then maybe I want to get Peter involved in this discussion because it's an important discussion. That 150 is just about regular. Anything below 150 is I think considered to be kind of castrate level, and for some people it takes a long time for their testosterone to come back, as in your case, but it's really good news that it is coming back. So I would say it's probably some patience and you'll start to feel a benefit from it. Do you know what your baseline testosterone was by any chance?
Well, when it was under 20. I don't remember how I don't remember how, if it was. I think the best they would do is less than 20. So.
No, I mean your testosterone before you started taking Lupron.
Oh, that I don't know. I have no idea what I was. No idea.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you don't know if you had lowish testosterone before you started.
No, that's right. I don't know that.
Okay. And guys, that's one reason why, as most of you know, we always say get your testosterone checked before you go on hormone therapy drugs. And also, if you're resuming and you've been off for a good while, it's good to do it because you know what your level was before. What about your weight? How are you managing with your weight?
My weight is still around 260. It's gone down. I lost about 3 or 4 pounds recently, and I'm exercising a lot more now. I'm playing tennis or going to the gym almost every day now, and that's I think it's making me stronger and also help me with the weight. So but I still I really need to lose another 40, 50 pounds, but it's not easy, as I'm sure you all know.
Yeah. Peter, what has your experience been, and what advice can you give to Paul on this recovery, this testosterone recovery?
Yeah, Paul, is this the first time you're going on you've been on intermittent this year?
Yeah, this is the first time I've gone off it. It's getting in. Last shot I had was 1 year ago.
Okay. Yeah, oddly enough, this was the discussion I wanted to have, and I wanted to bring Les in because I had some conversation with a friend of his name, was it Roger, Les? Who
Yes, it is Roger.
yeah, Roger got a hold of me at the PCRI conference, and he's been on ADT for I think 4 years, and his doctor wants him to go on intermittent, but Roger's he was kind of frozen. So I had a good talk with him and told him my experience, that I've been on and off 3 times now, and each time my testosterone has come back. It's in the high 300s now. And that's usually where it goes, someplace in the mid 300s, high 300s. I like you, Paul. I don't know what my baseline was before I started this whole thing, but each time I've gone off ADT, it's taken about 3 to 4 months for my testosterone to come back. So this time around, I've been off since the beginning of the year, so it's 9 months now. And
How long does it take for your PSA to start rising?
well, that's another topic. That's coming up in a minute.
Oh, okay.
But right now the testosterone's back, and I feel energetic, and I don't take naps, and I take walks, and I feel good. I mean, I've got some leg issues because I broke a femur 7 months ago, but other than that, I'm doing well. So I mean, I would like to just keep doing intermittent for a long time. Game plan, because it seems to keep working. I go off, go on, I go off, I go on. I do have some real fears and questions. I think I brought some of them up in our meeting last night. I was on Zytiga last year, and that took a heavier toll than just Lupron. I could feel it. I could feel the mental stuff going on, the memory loss and this kind of stuff, and I think it's building back. I think I don't have it like I used to. In the last couple of months, I've been feeling better in my head. But I don't know if I want to go back on something like Zytiga or enzalutamide. So I'm a little concerned about that. I haven't had that discussion with my oncologist yet. So what I have is creep. What I called it creep last night. I'm up to, I was undetectable for quite a while. I got to 0.08, 0.09. Then this last few weeks ago, my PSA went up to 0.14. So now it's above 0.1. So it's creeping, and I'm hoping I make it till the end of the year before I need to even think about doing anything. And then I've got to decide what to do with consultation with my doc. But going back to the conversation with Les, this mutual friend of ours, Roger, I spent quite a bit of time with him at PCRI because he's kind of frozen. His doctor wants him to go on intermittent because he's been on 4 years and he's really struggling with the energy stuff and the lack of this and that. And I tell him, hey, it can't. It's not. This disease is not going to get out of hand if you go off. You'll know soon enough whether your PSA starts climbing or, I mean, you'll get some signals pretty, within 6 months or 8 months, a year that maybe it's time to go back on. But at least taking a break is not a terrible thing, and one shouldn't be afraid of it. So that was the gist of the conversation I had with Roger, and I think it reassured him. I think, my experience is talking to him about what I've been through kind of gave him some reassurance that there is life after ADT.
Just as a point of reference, Les, testosterone, according to LabCorp, the normal range for testosterone for 19 to 39-year-olds, healthy, non-obese, is 264 to 916. So that tells me that as you get older, and if you're obese, it's going to be less than that. But 264 is the number that you want to be shooting for, if at all possible.
Yeah, I think Len is the breaks the mold. Len's testosterone's up around 900 or something.
I know, and he likes to show it off too.
Yes.
He likes to brag about it. I'm sorry, I think it was Paul that made the comment. I said Les. I apologize for that, Paul.
So I have a couple of questions, but I just would like, and I'd like to come back to this. So we're not done, but I just want to go back to Paul for a second. You mentioned about your pancreatic cyst. I don't know a lot about pancreatic cysts. I do know a lot about kidney cysts. And I had a kidney cyst for years and years. I think it was diagnosed. I've talked about this on the call before. It was first spotted around 2004, I think, and I followed it for a long time, and it seemed to get smaller. And we were going to go in and remove it because we thought it could be malignant in May 2007, but my urologist tested my PSA. That was because my GP refused to do it, and that's when I got diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I never had the surgery, and of course, wouldn't you know, the cyst started going down, and it turned out that it had been a benign cyst all the way along, Paul. So, I think that these soft tissue organs, or these organs, may have a propensity to create cysts. And the bottom line is just to keep a tight watch on it. And I mean, mine grew for a while and then it started going down. So I just want to tell you that. as my own personal experience.
Thank you. When I said to the pancreatic doctor, he said 1 year for the next MRI. I said, pancreatic cancer can take you out in 3 months. Shouldn't we be doing an MRI more, sooner? And he says, well, if you want to do it in 6 months, it's fine. It'll make you feel good. But I feel good with 1 year. So I decided to trust him and wait 1 year. Now, I might change my mind in 6 months and decide I want to do another MRI, but right now we're scheduled for 1 year from now for another check. There was one other unusual thing and that happened, and that is that all of the detections of my pancreatic cyst go back to 2015 with CT scans, but I had a CT scan like 3-4 months ago, and nothing showed up on the pancreas. But then when I had the MRI, it showed like a 0.9 millimeter growth there. So I'm very puzzled as to why the CT scan all of a sudden missed it. I don't expect any of you guys to have an answer for that, but it was kind of strange,
It depends on what they set the millimeter slices on. CT is really more for bone and sharp objects, whereas MRI is soft tissue. So it could be a lot of things. A millimeter slice compared to a centimeter slice and the size that they're looking at. A lot of different things can cause a CT not to show, or vice versa, really. Either way.
Really? Really? Well, all the previous CT scans showed that there was something there, but it was stable until last May, when it had almost doubled in size.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if it's been there for a long time and it's changing in size, I suspect your doc is thinking that it is some kind of a cyst, especially if it was stable for a while. But anyway, I mean, just keep watching it, and it sounds like you're not too freaked out. So, the key is not to get freaked out over it.
Well, initially I was, until after the endoscopic ultrasound, and he said he thought I was okay.
Can they not biopsy it?
That was one of the reasons he went in there, is to do a biopsy, and he said he couldn't get anything.
Huh. I wonder, that's weird. Okay, well, stay cool. Stay cool.
What's your PSA, Paul, and how often do you check that?
I haven't had a shot for a year, a Lupron shot for a year, and I'm still less than 0.1.
Great.
Undetectable,
Great.
So speaking of which, Peter, what's your testosterone?
In the high 300s.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Peter, I got a question for you. How high do you let your PSA go before you jump back on the ADT?
Well, the last time I let it get to about 0.75, 0.8, and then I did a PSMA scan, but it wasn't so much the absolute number. It was I was tracking the doubling time, and it was doubling every 7 weeks, and that's where the flag was for me to do a high-tech scan to find out what was going on.
Yeah, that's quick doubling time.
Yeah, but it was still under 1. I let it climb to 0.8 when I took the scan.
Now you also go back on Lupron, right?
Yes, I did go back on Lupron as well as Zytiga.
Right. Okay.
So, Len let his go up to about 4. I think
really?
it was. Yeah, and that's not unusual. And most of the docs, the good GU med oncs like Ryan and Morgans, etc., they're not uncomfortable with the PSA rising to as high, in the 2 to 4 range, and that's when they'll put you back on.
Yeah, but Len's got a prostate still. I don't have a problem.
That's true.
Mine's pretty low.
Yeah, but that's still doesn't take away. But his prostate has been radiated, Peter.
Right, but yeah.
He's going to get a little bit, but not a lot. But my point is that, you know, the docs, when they put you back on, I've heard them say, even with people who have had their prostates removed, that they're comfortable 2 to 4. I mean, I've heard some docs say 10, but I wouldn't want to wait till 10.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, 0.7 is low, but there again, you had your PSA scan and there was reason.
Right.
But from Paul, from your standpoint, I mean, don't start freaking out when it does start to move, and you know you got to hang in there, because it's probably not going to make a huge amount of difference unless, as Peter says, the velocity is very quick, in which case you do have to do something.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Now, I just want to make a comment on something that Peter said, and it's a shame Len isn't with us. Len's doc, Dr. O, switched him from abiraterone to darolutamide about 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago. And Len said to me whilst I was with him that he feels way better. He doesn't feel fatigued. He doesn't feel like he's got any brain fog. He doesn't feel anywhere near as fatigued as he did on the abiraterone. And he feels his head is clear. And so he sounds like he's pretty happy on the dutasteride, Peter. And of course, that's because we know that dutasteride doesn't affect brain barrier. So maybe that's something when you go back on, you could be pursuing with Turner.
Darolutamide, Rick, not
Darolutamide. Darolutamide, yes, for sure I'm going to. I've already talked to him a little bit about it.
Okay.
Is that monotherapy for Len, or is he?
No, he had a Lupron shot.
Okay.
He had a Lupron shot. So anyone else that has some thoughts or has been on intermittent or has some thoughts on recovery after intermittent, or maybe even has questions because they're considering going on intermittent?
Len, I think you've got your guest back on.
Sorry. Yeah, we have Tebow is back. Yeah, I see that. But
John Appler, you're off of ADT now, right? Aren't you?
I am, just 1 month, Peter.
Now,
I just took my test today.
When you say 1 month, you mean it's about 1 month since you think you feel that your LHRH, your Lupron, should have worn off? Is that how you're judging it?
Exactly right. My last shot was May, and so it should have worn off in August, and now we're a month later, and I just took my blood test today, and I don't feel any better at all after 1 month, quite frankly. So I feel like the train's still headed downhill.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you can't really judge. It's not really a month because there's a half-life to the Lupron, and so it can take quite some time before you really benefit. I mean, I know in my own case, I had my last shot. Sorry about that, guys. I had my last shot in the February, and May came around, and I was still had no testosterone, And by the August, which was 6 months, it started to come back. So it was a good 3 months after it should have shown that it started to show. So,
Good to
again,
know.
I think, John, it will happen. I'm sure it'll happen. But it might take a while. Again, do you know what your baseline was?
All I know is that it was normal range. I don't have the specific number, but as soon as I heard that, I'm going to go back and look it up. So, good thing to know.
Yeah, the reason why it's important is because to know is because it gives you some sort of a standard to measure by when it comes back. I mean, mine was weird. It came back to, I think my baseline was about 500 or 560, and it came back to over 700, and then it dropped down to about 400, 350 to 400 for a while, like for several months. I'm sorry, guys. Somebody keeps.
You sure it's not Bill trying to reach you?
Well, it might be, but I'll have a look in a second. I started supplementing with testosterone, and that made absolutely no difference. I did that for, I think, 6 to 9 months, and it was messy, and I used the roller thing that you've got to put on under your arm, and it wasn't great, and it didn't make any difference, so I gave that up. And then about 6 months after that, my testosterone started going up, and I think I was testing every 3 months. And it went back up to where it's been ever since, which is between about 550 and 700. I sort of measure once a year. So, testosterone has its own life. The other thing is it can vary significantly during the day. So, it depends on the time of day that you measure it.
So what do you guys think of this conversation, Les and I have with this friend of ours, Roger, was the fear factor. Some people just, even though the doctor says try going off of it, they're frozen. They're afraid to go off of the thing because they think it's going to let the cancer go wild.
Well, let's ask Dennis, because Dennis doesn't feel comfortable going off. Dennis, I mean, what's your position on this?
Well, my diagnosis was at 7 metastasis and so forth, and when I got on the Lupron and subsequently had the recurrence and had to go on the Zytiga, and I was basically told that I'm going to be on it, forever. There wasn't. This was just continuous use, and I'm doing okay with it. I get tired and I get fatigued, but I can pretty much do most of what I want as long as I'll go out play my golf and so forth. I don't know that I could live with the intermittent and the anxiety. Basically, I kind of have enough anxiety with my every 3-month blood work because I know this is gonna, this stuff's gonna stop working at some point in time. So, I mean, that's enough for me, basically, I've just relegated myself to saying this is the way it is.
We've had other folks who have been diagnosed metastatic and they take a holiday. I mean, Peter, what would you say to Dennis on that?
I don't know. I'm not going to encourage him to do anything or not. I mean, he's had far, he's got far more meds than I'm dealing with. I don't, the idea of becoming resistant. I don't know if you become resistant any faster or slower, whether you're on it or whether you're on intermittent. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I don't think there's been any long-term trials or
Right.
large number of participants
I agree.
to show what's the difference. One arm with people that are doing intermittent, one without, with continuous, and what's the standard outcomes and overall survivability and all the other factors they look at.
Dennis, this is Jerry. I think that's Dr. Singh's protocol because that's exactly what he told me. I'd be on Lupron for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It may be a Mayo SOP, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have an anecdotal comment, if I may. This is Jake. I tried intermittents, back in 2013 or so, 2014, after I'd been on Lupron for about a year or so. And my doctor did not think it would work, but she went along with it, and I tried it. And in my case, it did not work. My PSA started going up very rapidly. But, and this is the important part of it, is as soon as I got back on the Lupron, my PSA reduced again to where it was before. So, that might allay some fears about going off of it. In my case, it did work, and my PSA went back down again to the level it had been before that, for what it's worth.
Yeah, there's just so many other factors. Where's your testosterone level to start? What's your age? I'll be 74 in a couple of months, and I don't see the data there yet. And I know it seems to be working for some people, and I think it's particularly if you're a little bit younger and things are still going strong, and either you're working or you've got other reasons that the mental fog and those kinds of things are disruptive to your lifestyle for whatever reason. It's a possibility. It's a working possibility.
Good points.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, where and Les, where do you stand with Roger right now?
I can comment. Peter, you must have done some good because as of a few days ago, Roger was saying that he was trying to convince other people to go off. So that's apparently what he's going to do.
Okay. Yeah, as long as he's being followed by a good doctor and keeping an eye on things and not thumbing his nose at the disease. I mean, as long as you're intelligent about it and under some professional care, and particularly in his case where this doctor actually recommended him going off. When I saw him, his quality of life was in the basement. He was just dragging his butt around and kind of hating where he was with 4 years of Lupron.
Now, I think that's a big difference on how you react. I react in a similar manner that my endurance is way, way down. But as some people on this call, that they can go on long hikes and no problem. Just on it's the difference of the individual, I guess.
Right.
Les, are you on? You're on Lupron right now, correct?
No, I'm not. My last Lupron shot was March 1st, and I was on 4 months, so that's been off for a couple months now. And my testosterone is all the way up to 22.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, it just takes time. I mean, look at Paul Frieda, who's been off, how long have you been off, Paul?
My last Lupron shot was a year ago.
Yeah, so and his testosterone's only started to move in the last couple of months. So the older you are, the less time the more time it takes. So you're just gonna have to give it time and be patient, but it'll come back. It will come back. Just bear with me one second, Jake. It was Bill. Can you call him again and see if you can help him join us by telephone? Because he's telling me he's having some issues. Maybe you can just talk him through it somehow. Oh, I think Jake's frozen. No, he's not. He's not frozen. He's just holding still. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, is there anybody else before we go to Thibaut? Is there anybody else that would like to talk, to say anything else on this intermittent? It's a solid subject to be discussing and for a long time, because it's very attractive to go off the hormone therapy. But it takes time to get the testosterone back and for you to feel good. It isn't a sort of a miracle that as soon as the Lupron is supposed to wear out, then you feel great again. I know in my own case, it probably took me a year and a half to 2 years before I felt good. And then there was still some things, I still had some leftover side effects. So for those of you like John, who hopefully won't have to do any more treatment, which was my situation, and for those of you who are thinking intermittent, it just takes time. Peter, how long, the first time you did it, how long was it before you really started to feel a benefit after the shot was supposed to have worn off?
3 to 4 months. Took 3 to 4 months each time. I've done it three times now, and each time it's 3 to 4 months. A little bit 4 months.
And I think that's good going, because I think you're lucky. In my case, it was after it wore off, it was probably 3 to 4 months, but then like with Paul, it's longer. So a lot of this is about setting the right expectation, because if you have the right expectation, then you don't get disappointed, you don't get stressed. And I think that's really important. Okay, anything else on this topic? Okay, let's go back to Thibaut for an update before we lose him again, because that happens.
Sorry, my boys left the backyard gate open, and our 16-year-old dog wandered away, and my wife was in the middle of grilling steaks.
Okay.
I had to pick up finishing dinner, and now I'm back.
Okay, did you have dinner already? That was quick.
Oh, I had a few bites.
Okay.
I've been off of the steroids for a week, so my appetite's back to its very small amount. It used to be that everything was appealing and I ate large amounts. I would just eat all day long and all night long. But now nothing's really appealing, so I'm drinking like nutritional beverages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Did you go? I'm not sure with dexamethasone. I do know with prednisone that you can't just stop it cold turkey, because when you do, that's what happens. You lose your appetite completely, and you can
I
lose
had
weight.
to taper. Yeah, I tapered down,
Yeah.
and it was a very small dose, and finally down to 0 a week ago.
So, it could be that this loss of appetite has something to do with coming off the steroids as well.
Yeah. So today I had my final visit with the lutetium clinical trial and gave them a blood sample. So I'll get a PSA reading and testosterone from today. I haven't had one in a while, but the radiation probably reduced it a bit. My medical oncologist, Dr. Denmead, has a plan which is based on some anecdotal evidence from 3 of his other patients who had this sequence of treatments, starting with the bone marrow transplant, and then some combination of trying again with Xtandi, where they'd already had it before, and some bipolar testosterone and some immunotherapy. I don't know exactly which one or what the sequence is, but all 3 of them have had a huge response. And so he's trying it with me. I'm back on Xtandi now. I started that a week ago. I'm feeling a lot of fatigue from the brain radiation, sleeping a lot. There's some days where I really can't do anything other than sleep and eat. Good day is where I can spend a couple hours at my desk and something.
So you said that Denny had a 3-part kind of 3-stage treatment, and that was bone marrow, BAT, and then the androgen receptor, and then the androgen receptor drugs again. So
4 parts.
4 parts. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's also some kind of immunotherapy, like Terlita or something. I forget which one.
Okay. So you're at the anti-androgen stage, and then what would be the immunotherapy that comes next?
Yeah, I don't remember which one.
Okay. I mean, the only thing that I'm thinking, and I don't know if it would make a difference or not, but I don't know if you were on just before when we were talking about the darolutamide. Len has been on darolutamide, which acts much the same way as enzalutamide, Xtandi, except it doesn't cross the brain barrier. So to the extent that the fatigue is being caused by the Xtandi rather than the brain radiation, you might want to discuss the darolutamide with Dr. Denmead. I mean, Len noticed the difference pretty quickly. So I'm just saying that could be an alternative that might reduce your fatigue, the darolutamide.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that Xtandi might be the cause of the fatigue, but I guess that's possible because the first
Yeah,
time I took it, it did cause fatigue.
yeah. And there's
Not the
other guys on this
fatigue.
call. There are other guys on this call who have experience. Right. I mean, who else on the call has experienced fatigue from taking enzalutamide Xtandi?
No, I certainly have. This is Jake.
And have you noticed any difference, Jake, when you? I mean, now you're on the abiraterone. Have you noticed any difference going from Xtandi to abiraterone?
Maybe a little, but I'm not even sure. It's if it is, it's not well measurable. So, but then I've been on Lupron too, and that causes fatigue.
Right, right. Well, we certainly know about that. I mean, we know the Lupron does tend to cause major fatigue. Anyone else here on Xtandi today? Enzalutamide? No. No, you're all abiraterone guys. Jerry, what are you? I forget what are you on? You're on abiraterone, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as Tebow says, though, brain radiation, 10 sessions of radiation to the brain, that could well cause a lot of fatigue too.
Yeah, they say it causes the fatigue for about 2 months.
Well, just give Demi the buzz or send him a note and ask him, could you try darolutamide because you've heard you know people who have felt a big reduction in fatigue, and it may be contributing. I mean, look, you got a situation where you've got the brain radiation, and then you layer on top of that the enzalutamide. So it just exaggerates the fatigue. So anything we can do to reduce it by using, say, darolutamide instead of enzalutamide might be helpful.
Well, he doesn't really know exactly why the sequence of 4 things works, but I want to stick to the recipe as much as possible. But I'll mention that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that from my understanding, the way that darolutamide works is, and what it does is very, very similar to the enzalutamide and the apalutamide. The only difference with the darolutamide is that it doesn't cross the brain barrier. So, I mean, he obviously would know, and he's going to be able to respond to you when you ask him how different the drug is. But, I don't think you're really, I mean, I'm not a doc, but I don't suspect you're straying too much off of the same recipe.
Well, I wonder if we needed to cross the brain barrier because I do have cancer in the brain, or I shouldn't after the radiation.
Well, talk to him about it.
Yeah.
Talk to him about it. I do have a question. I do have a question about the lutetium. I had thought that they won't give the lutetium any longer if you have brain mets, but were you able to finish your lutetium treatment?
No, they kicked me out of the trial because my hemoglobin was too low, down to 8. And it had been, close to that. And he didn't do anything, but once it got down to 8, and I entered the hospital for the He decided I need to stop. So I didn't get the sixth infusion.
So did you? They admitted you to the trial, right? And you started, or did you not? I thought you did.
Oh, I was in the trial for 5 infusions.
Okay.
5 of the 6.
Right, that's what I thought. So you did get you had 5 infusions. So basically, it was just the last one you didn't do.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, throw it open to anybody who would like to ask questions of Thibaut, or Thibaut, if you've got any questions for us.
Thibaut, have you been able to talk to any of these 3 or 4 guys that Denmead treated and had success with?
No, I haven't spoken to them. Dr. Denby just told me that this sequence of treatments gave a huge PSA response for them.
Thibaut, did the lutetium have any noticeable effect? Even though it was only 5 of the 6 treatments, did it have any effect for you?
It reduced my PSA in a linear fashion, straight line, down from PSA of 1850 to 600.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's
It also
good.
reduced my the size of my lymph nodes by 70%, and it reduced the mets in my liver by about the same amount.
Okay, well, that's good.
It
I
did
don't know.
not affect the growth of the mets in my bones, and apparently it did not cross the blood-brain barrier, and so it did not stop the new cancer in my brain planning.
When was the last time you measured your PSA? Do we know if it's continuing to reduce?
No, I haven't had a PSA measurement in like 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question.
Okay.
I don't know how long lutetium has the benefit. I mean, is it like Provenge that continues to work even after you stop treatments? I don't know. Does anybody know?
It's it's a radiation, so its half-life is pretty short.
So probably
So they would expect to see a result. They would expect to see the result reflected in the PSA pretty quickly. And then how long after the last treatment is the final measurement? Do you know?
Well, they asked about continuing to monitor me, but I figure I'll be getting monitoring at Johns Hopkins, and I don't want to get too much testing, so I'm not going to continue testing with the trial because they require you go to a particular place for your scans, and Johns Hopkins is going to want their own scans, so I'm just going to go with the Hopkins.
I'm surprised that Demi didn't measure your PSA before you started the Xtandi. I mean, how's he going to know whether how's he going to benchmark the Xtandi with scans or something like that?
That's a good point. I guess he's assuming that the PSA is going to be dropping right now because of the radiation treatment. So I had a PSA test today, so I'll be able to tell from here.
Right. So look, you please let us know about the result of your PSA test today. Are these PSA tests all being done at Hopkins? I mean, I guess not, because some of them were being done for the lutetium, and now you're off them and
Today
back.
was the last one done for the lutetium trial.
Oh, so this was a lutetium one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you think the general, I asked these questions when I was at the PCRI conference and got some general acknowledgement that lutetium, as it's approved, will essentially replace the radium-233. There won't be any use for that, really, as opposed to once lutetium is approved or is widespread in trials. Is that the general
I
feeling?
asked Dr. Denmead about doing radium-223 next, and he said he didn't recommend it because it had major side effects. It really wears people down. And I had no significant side effects from the lutetium. So, yeah, I think you're right that once lutetium's approved, the use of radium-223 is going to go down. But the lutetium didn't do anything for my bone mets, so, maybe radium will still be used in cases where the predominant metastases are in the bones.
Mm-hmm. I think the big problem with the lutetium, with the radium-223 is that if you're already prone to issues with your blood counts, it really carries with it the possibility of myelosuppression, which is that it acts on the bone marrow and then causes you lots more problems in depressing your blood counts. And that's a much more common side effect with the lutetium, with the Xofigo, the radium-223, than it is with the lutetium.
Yeah, if my red count were normal, he might have said, sure, let's try the radium-223. But my red count's pretty low, so we didn't do it.
So, Thibaut, did you by any chance listen to our call last week?
No.
It's a really interesting trial that's just starting at Columbia Presbyterian, but it's the only place. Probably it won't work only because it's a phase 1, phase 2, and there's going to be too much travel involved. However, the concept of the drug is really interesting. And, it may be that there's somewhere else, or maybe somebody else who's starting this up. You might want to check if Hopkins is trying to trial it. It's a drug called REGN 5678. And I wanted to raise this anyway for the whole of the call. And Jerry Deans was on the call last week and talked to us about it. And for those of you who don't know Jerry, he's the vice chair of the board for us too. And we've been helping him, supporting him, and navigating him for 2 or 3 years, maybe even longer, maybe 4 years now. And he was a Snuffy Myers patient, and Snuffy referred him to Charles Drake, who's very reputable. Who heads the Columbia Presbyterian program. Now, Jerry lives in Richmond, Virginia. His doc is in New York, on Manhattan Island, right by the GW Bridge. So it's not the easiest. The drug that he's recommending Jerry try, and Len mentioned it last week, but I want to just reiterate. It's an antibody that has two arms. One arm is sensitized to PSMA. So it pulls the drug to the cell just like the lutetium does. But the other arm isn't a radiation arm. It has on it some sort of protein that attracts T cells. So the other arm is pulling in a T cell to specifically attack the prostate cancer cell that it has on the other end. Does that make sense to everybody? Have I explained it simply enough? I mean, I don't understand it in much more complex terms. I just want to tell you, Len might, but I certainly don't. But this is my understanding of how the drug works. And for me, it's the first time I've heard of a PSMA sensitized drug that is not carrying a radioactive substance. It's carrying something other than a radioactive substance. And again, it's REGN 5678. REGN stands for Regeneron. And wouldn't you know that Len's daughter-in-law, who is a PhD immunologist, just started working for Regeneron last week, which is, again, one of our weird synchronistic things that happen to us at ANCAN. So I actually spoke to Caitlin whilst we were in Utah, and I've asked her to see what the buzz is around Regeneron regarding this REGM 5678. If they're as excited about it as Len and I are, we think it's, it could be a game changer, just the same way that the lutetium PSMA appears to be a game changer.
Sounds interesting.
So I'll send you. Actually, what I'll do, let me put the trial. Let me put the trial for you right now in the chat box, and you can look at it. And while it may not help you right now, you can show it to Denmead and see what he thinks, and if there's anything else in this line that's coming through. See, we don't really hear. We don't know ahead of time, but then you get a great doc like Drake, who's willing to throw a guy into a cutting edge trial, and that's how we learn about this stuff. So I'm just going to pull up the trial and put it in the chat window. See, I don't have my right hand man with us today, Mr. Sierra, who can take over the moderation. Jake can take over the moderation. Can you take over this moderation whilst I'm doing this?
I can certainly try.
Well, I just want to tell everybody that Jake does a super job moderating, but he doesn't think so. And if any of you were on the Speaking Freely call last Thursday, you would have heard him, and God bless him, because my reception was going in and out as I was driving across the Native American reservation, and Jake was outstanding. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, thank you for that, Rick. I appreciate the compliment. So Tebow, have we talked about everything you need to talk about?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, well, good luck with that. We all wish you the best, as you know. Who else? I didn't right down who wanted to talk. I know we talked to Paul, and I know we talked to Tebow.
We have Jerry Pelfrey and we have Les.
Okay. Jerry, do you want to go first?
Sure. I haven't brought you guys up to speed for a long time. I apologize for that. But on my last tests, which were September 9th, my PSA is 0.014 and testosterone is less than 7. And everything else has been tracking normally ever since I was diagnosed back in February 6th. So then, in talking with Dr. Singh, he and I agreed that it was time that I do a brain MRI and a CT of the chest. I had already done a CT urogram, and then he wanted a full body scan. So I did that a week ago or so, and then we just met with him yesterday, and he pretty much basically doesn't want to see me for 6 weeks. He says that I am basically almost in remission, which kind of made my wife and I both our mouths drop. We really still can't get our head quite around that. But when I looked at the brain scan and I looked at more importantly, the nuke med scan and the CT, it really has diminished very considerably. And so we're sitting here where now Dr. Singh is saying if anything happens, he'll want to hear from me in 3 months. But if nothing happens and he doesn't think anything's going to happen, he'll see me in 6 months. And I'll still continue with my blood work, but I'll just send it to him every month. And my next Lupron shot will be December 4th. And he likes to keep, evidently, the Lupron shot every 3 months. So anyway, that's the status right now. It's really kind of surprising to us. And I am going to have, because of a small wall thickening in the bladder and another small wall thickening in the colon, he did set up me going to a urologist and a gastroenterologist for just to check that and make sure it's nothing that we need to worry about. And now he approached me with something he said Mayo really believes in, and is probably one of the few that do. And you guys can tell me if he's telling me the truth. But he has got me going to my RO, and he's setting up radiation for me to the prostate.
Right.
And I forget the correct term for that, Rick. What is it?
Debulking.
I'm sorry?
Debulking. Debulking. Debulking.
Okay, thank you. And then,
Jerry,
and then
did you get it, or are you just saying thank you to be polite?
No. Listen, this group is a lifesaver, but I'm going to keep using it as I really want to know, because I was in radiology, sort of ancillary, for 33 years, and I happen to know very well what radiation does. So if anyone has had their prostate obliterated by radiation, I'd certainly like to chat with them.
Well, the man to talk to Let me just back off 1 second because I had a question. Are you still continuing the abiraterone or are you stopping that?
No, everything stays the same.
Everything stays the same. Okay.
Well, it stays the same. Well, I take that back. I had gone to 500. He bumped me up to 750 again. So I'm on 750 milligrams of Zytiga.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So, because, we know people taking 250 with food, and we know people taking 1,000, but I haven't heard of people on 500 and 750. That's interesting. How did that come about?
When I first was, let's see, I was diagnosed in February, mid-March, say March 15th, was when I started Zytiga with the Lupron, and it was 1,000 milligram.
Right.
Just a quick background. I found out I had cancer at home. Our home is a 6-hour drive from Tucson in San Carlos, Mexico. So in about a month time from that January time when I found out, from a CT to February 6th with Dr. Singh, with Dr. Singh, it was quite a feat. Ending up, we are now living in Prescott and driving with Dr. Singh. So I have a Prescott MO that oversees me here while I'm here, but really the main one is Dr. Singh. So about 3 months ago when I saw Dr. H here, and I had the reaction to the 1,000 milligram, he put me on the 500 milligram just to get me away from God. I was totally fatigued and crying all the time. But now, let's see, it was the 9th of September. Dr. Singh wanted me back up to 750, and I've analyzed that, and I had so much going on when from the time I first found out to when I could relax. I really think all of that trauma, anxiety, everything that was going on caused a lot of that depression and fatigue from the 1,000 milligram. So I think probably this next 6-month visit, I'll be back up to 1,000 milligram.
Well, look,
I think he's titrating it back up.
Right. But
That makes sense.
I have to say that you got a good result with the 500. It sounds like you got a great result with the 500. So, I think that if you do have a bad response again, maybe your body can deal with 500 or 750. It's interesting. The problem is they never really know. They pick a dose and they do these phase 1, phase 2 trials, and they see how much you can tolerate, and then that's where they're at. I remember when soon after Abby was fully approved, they did a 1,000, 1K, 2K trial for it, 1,000 milligrams and 2,000 milligrams at UCSF. And my buddy Jerry, God rest his soul, was on that trial. And the idea was that if you tolerated 1,000, they kept you on 1,000 for a while, and then they upped it to 2,000. But what they found in the guys that could tolerate it and who did have a response, and I know some guys that went in that trial and they were ARV7 positive, so they failed it. But the guys that did do it, the 2,000 didn't make any difference to the 1,000. It didn't have any better, it didn't produce any better results. So they just, that's what they learned from the trial. So, maybe 500 has the same result as 2,000, as 1,000 rather. I'm not sure they really know.
No, they may not, Rick, but I'll tell you, with all my bone metastasis from C2 all the way down to my sacrum and plus the pelvis, and I've got one, believe it or not, at the crown of my head. These little cancer cells love to hide around, and he might just be putting it up to give it a little stronger dose to see if I get any better response.
Right. Now, did the scan show that the cancer had shrunk to nothing, or did it just show that all of the Mets were reducing or hadn't grown?
He, in his report on the portal, said remission was almost total.
Wow.
So how he interprets it, how we interpret it, I still have some cancer because I saw it on the bone scan and I saw it on the CT. So, but what he's saying evidently is I am evidently very quickly going to remission, and I have residual cancer so he can't say that I'm in remission totally.
Right. Well, the only thing I want to remind you of, and especially I want to remind Debbie, because I still have memories of the very early calls with Debbie with the caregivers and with you, is that we told you we could help you manage this cancer. I mean, it's not us doing it, of course, Dr. Singh, and I'm so happy for you that you've gotten some results. I'm so happy. You must.
Well, I tell you, Rick, it's a lot to the fact also that now I'm a pescatarian. The minute I heard the diagnosis, I went totally organic. So I have a lot to say for diet, and I also exercise.
Yeah.
So that helps too.
Yeah. So who has some questions? Oh, one other thing I wanted to tell Peter. Peter, this is the Dr. Singh that I was talking about yesterday, who's at Mayo in Phoenix.
Right, I got it. Yeah, he's come up before a number of times over the month.
Right, and Parminder Singh, he's Dennis's doc, he's Jerry's doc, and I think he would be a great person for a consult for the bladder cancer people that that we've talked about.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'll let them know for sure.
Yeah, and you got my email about that earlier on today, correct?
I did, and I had already passed the information on to them.
Super, thanks. So let me throw it open to, Christmas. I would think some of you would like to talk to Jerry and congratulate him on this great result, and if nothing else. Who's got something to say to Jerry? No one?
Jerry Les, was it?
I'm just too young for this program. That's all. That's what's sort of scary to me, because I've got the worst Mets and that I've got, and I know there are people worse than I.
Right.
But that's why we kind of we don't understand it. We can't get it in our head that within 8 months I can be at almost total remission.
Right, Jerry, you were questioning about why radiate the prostate if the Mets seem to be all out in the prostate and not in the prostate.
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't say it right. I am concerned about the peripheral, the side effects from having 7 weeks of everyday radiation.
Right. Well, first of all, it may not be 7 weeks, because if you go to somebody that does SBRT, we can do that instead of in 7 weeks, we can do it in 4 or 5 sessions. And the other alternative might be to do high dose brachytherapy, which you can do in 1 at the most 2 sessions. So don't lock in the 7 weeks. There's other ways to do it. What I meant to tell you, and Peter, thank you, Peter, for jogging my mind, is that Ken Anderson went through the same debulking process after he had done chemotherapy, I think about a year after. And his doc at MD Anderson, Paul Korn, recommended that they debulk, and he did it with Jerry Lucas in Phoenix, but Lucas only does the IMRT, which is the 7-week program, which clearly isn't great. What I would suggest is that you talk with Ken, and if you don't have his number, I'll connect you afterwards.
Well, Rick, I actually, when I had my palliative photon radiation, I had it with Dr. Shield, who's chairman of the radiology department, and he said to call him anytime. So we've already started setting it up with him. But I'll keep that in mind. But we're supposed to have a consult with Dr. Shield, and I'm sure at that time he'll tell me whether, I thought it was going to be 7 weeks no matter what. So you've given me some good, you make me feel better.
Well, check with him. I mean, see if they can do it with brachy. I mean, I don't think that they're really so concerned with doing whole pelvic radiation because you're treating that with the abiraterone. But they may be, and it's much tougher to do the whole pelvic radiation with anything other than the IMRT. So that might mean 20 sessions plus whatever they do to blast the prostate, which the prostate itself, they should be able to do in anywhere from 1 to 4 sessions, depending on what you use. I mean, I don't think that you have to fall back on IMRT. That's just something to be thinking about. I would definitely speak to Ken Anderson because, like I say, he's been through this and he'll be able to tell you about the side effects from doing the debulking.
Okay.
Which is, I think, one of the things that you're probably very interested in. So let me connect you to Ken after the meeting, and I'll give both of you your telephone numbers. He isn't in Phoenix right now; he's up in the Northwest. But
okay.
But you can talk to him, and you have Shields set up, so you don't need Lucas. You did the PBRT for spot radiation, is that right?
Yeah, it was really for the pain between my shoulder blades.
Right. Actually, that's a good point too, because I think it was Peter just left, but I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago, somebody was asking whether you could use PBRT for spot radiation. I had forgotten until you just said it that you definitely could. Okay. Well, any other questions? If not, we'll move on. I want to check in with Les, and we have a couple of new people that have joined the call, and I want to check in and see if they would like to talk. So, anything else for Jerry from anybody?
Let's continue.
Let's continue. Jerry, I am thrilled. I think you should go back to San Carlos because I need somebody to visit and stay with when I go down there.
Well, we can look into that if we still have our house down there, like we do.
Okay. All right. Let me just check in. Rich Jackson is with us. And Rich, is there anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
Nope, all quiet on the Eastern Front. Thanks.
All quiet on the Eastern Front. Well, it's not exactly all quiet. Everybody should know that Rich went on a 5-day vacation with his motorcycling buddies and came back with 3 trophies. So we're very proud of him for some skill competitions on his bike. So good on you, Mr. Jackson. You did great.
Way to go, Rich.
Way to go. And Larry Fish, would you like any time?
Well, it's a follow-up to Jerry, actually.
Okay, well,
Do you want me to hold off, or it's sort of a continuation of Jerry's conversation?
Yeah, well, I do want to go to Les, and then we'll come back to you on Jerry.
Okay.
All right, Jerry, stay with us, but I do want to go to Les because I don't want to get squeezed for time in case. Les, you're up. Tell us what's on your mind.
Okay, most of what I was going to talk about we already covered. However, I did want to ask about the next Monday session. Is that firm that it's going to be Monday, October 7th?
So next Monday, thank you for raising this. I'm trying to multitask here whilst moderating, and I forgot that I wanted to mention this. Next Monday is a 5th Monday, and we will have a webinar, and it should be outstanding because we're going to welcome one of my most favorite docs, a gentleman called Larry Fong, F-O-N-G. You can read about him on our website because he's on our advisory board. So if you go to the tab, I forget which tab it is now, about. If you go to about and you go to Ancan Team, there is a section called Advisory Board, and you'll be able to read about Larry, or you can just put Larry Fong in the search box. I've worked with Larry since around 2012, I want to say. And I consider him to be, well, let me say this. If I had to be treated for advanced prostate cancer, he would be the guy that I would go to first. He's exceptionally smart, and he is incredibly compassionate. He is now the co-director of the immuno-oncology program at UCSF. And he really hasn't been taking patients now for a couple of years. I've called him a couple of times to see if I can get somebody to see him. Some of our people have seen him since then, but they've just somehow or other managed to wheedle an appointment. So next time I have somebody, I'm going to try and get him in. Having said that, I want to tell you about the immuno-oncology department. It was endowed with $50 million by Sean Parker when he created the Parker Institute. He gave $250 million to create the Parker Institute, and it was divided amongst 5 institutions, and UCSF was one of them, and with the purpose of investigating immuno-oncology, i.e. immunotherapy to cure cancer. And they all work with each other. So they don't work in a capsule. They're doing their research, but everybody's exchanging information the whole time. And Larry is going to talk to us about immuno-oncology. not necessarily specifically prostate cancer, but he'll take questions on prostate cancer. But really the concepts of immuno-oncology. He's going to keep it simple for us. And frankly, I'm very, very excited. So that will be on the 31st, Monday the 30th. There is no 31st of September, of course, Monday the 30th. And then our next session will be the 7th, Monday the 7th, and Monday the 21st. What we have done is we've moved the Tuesday sessions to the 15th and 29th. And I will remind you of that again, and I'll put it in my letter, but the Tuesday sessions are going to be the 3rd and 5th Tuesday of October rather than the 1st and 3rd. And it so happens, and I'm just looking here, the first Tuesday is the night of Yom Kippur, so I wouldn't have been able to moderate that anyway. Okay, anything else, Les?
Yes, the reason I had asked at the last us two meeting, a gentleman that sat next to me, this was just a few days ago, was a 50-year-old gentleman that was just diagnosed with a Gleason 10 prostate cancer. And after I told him that I was Gleason 10, he wanted to speak with me directly, which I said was fine. I'd be willing to do it. However, I strongly recommended that he join this group. I asked him to come or join it tonight, but he said he couldn't make it on Tuesday, and he said maybe on a Monday.
Okay.
And I said, well, I thought that the next Monday one would be October 7th. I want to confirm that.
Well, you're right.
Okay. I think this would be a good place. He had some questions. He was wanting to do surgery, and his doctor did not. And I thought this would be a good forum to voice his questions. So,
funnily enough, Immerman Angels was in touch with me yesterday and today, and they've got a guy in pretty much exactly the same boat. But the reverse situation where he's a young guy with a Gleason 9 and the doc wants to do surgery and he's not sure. So it's the other side of the coin. It would be good if we could get both those guys on the call at the same time. Les, if you have his or can get his email, we'll put him on the, we'll add him to the distribution for the reminder.
okay, I will email that to you.
Super. Thank you very much. Okay, Larry, let's go back to you, to your comments on Jerry Pelfrey.
Well, it was sort of the same. Wasn't so much like you were talking about the difference between radiating the prostate and radiating the pelvic girdle. And that for the prostate alone, you could probably use like a high beam or brachytherapy.
Yep.
Does that include the prostate bed?
I believe it does, yeah. But I'm not certain about that, but I'm pretty sure, yes, they can radiate the prostate and the prostate bed with brachytherapy and with CyberKnife. And I'll tell you how I know that, because they were concerned that my disease had spread outside the prostate, and they actually put seeds in the prostate bed in my case.
So, Mike, what about like a high beam radiation to just the prostate? Is that also, because when I mentioned the word debulking, I was saying that my last visit last week with my oncologist, she revisited this idea of radiating the prostate.
Yeah.
And I said, you mean we a couple of years ago, we were talking about a year ago, described this idea as like maybe the value of debulking the prostate.
Yeah.
She said to her, debulking usually meant surgery more than radiation, but that she'd refer me to a radiation oncologist anyway, and to explore. And I said, originally when I was diagnosed, they wanted to radiate my hip, my pelvis with, and said it would be palliative, and they didn't expect it to be beneficial in terms of progression or survival, but for pain in my pelvis. And then when I had gone to Dana-Farber for an opinion, they said, why would you want to just go into this radiation that has a lot of potential side effects and could affect your intestines and your hernia? You have a hernia and your lymph, and there are a lot of risks also. And since it's not going to do anything for your progression, probably. And then came out this information about the idea of debulking the primary, which is different.
Right.
And now, after a year or 2 years, or maybe it was more than 2 years, my primary now said, "What about this idea about radiating the prostate?"
Right.
And I said, "You mean the prostate and the prostate bed or the prostate girdle?" She said, "Well, I would refer you to. I have an idea of a radiation oncologist that I'd like to refer you to."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, well, let's discuss it at my next visit and see where my PSA is at." And that's where I'm left. And I came back thinking, is it just the prostate or the prostate bed? And we were discussing, I don't want to go for 40 sessions. She was saying, well, that could be like 4 to 8 sessions.
Right. Well, that's interesting, because that I would agree with that, and that would be using a high intensity radiation. So Jerry, it may be possible to use high intensity radiation if Larry's medical oncologist at Memorial Sloan Kettering is suggesting that, then it probably is possible.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that oncologist yet. This is just the discussion about referral.
Yeah. But hold on, John. I'll come back. But Larry, the point is that if your doc, whose name begins with A, and I always forget.
Audio. It sounds like audio, but it's with a T. Audio.
If Karen Audio is saying, well, it may only be 4 to 8 sessions, she's aware, obviously, with other people, that you can do this in less than 40 sessions. So even though I know you haven't seen the doc yet, I mean, I would take her opinion over my opinion any day.
She was tentative, and she was about what was going to happen. And I said, I don't want to go. Once you go to a radiation oncologist, they're going to say, okay, radiation. She said, no, this is not that kind of a radiation oncologist. And sometimes he thinks it's a good idea or not a good idea. And she said, you can try and go to see him. And we tabled it. But I'm still debating this whole idea of 4 to 8 sessions with low potential for a lot of side effects.
Who was she? Go ahead.
The only thing I was going to say was that radiating the prostate when you're not Gleason 9 or Gleason 10, at least at Mayo, it's standard operation to radiate the prostate rather than do surgery.
Yeah, I was stage 4, way beyond. I discovered it in my bones. That's how I found out.
Yeah, but you see now, I mean, the reason that Singh said to you, well, this is really what only Mayo does, is because for years before the radiation, Mayo was the only hospital in the country that was still doing surgery if you were metastatic. But it was surgery. But their belief was you got to take out the primary. It's always been their philosophy. Now, the debulking, to me, it's literally debulking if you do surgery, but it's figuratively debulking if you do the radiation, because you're not actually taking the tumor out, you're just zapping it. So, I don't think there's a big difference in the use of the term. When we say debulking, what we mean is attacking the prostate to remove the primary tumor. And Mayo was in the lead doing that for years and years, and now and then Sloan Kettering also followed along and did some testing with that, and they had a couple of trials and they found that it worked. One of them, I think, said it extended progression free by about 20 months, if I remember correctly. So it doesn't surprise me that it's, we're hearing this from Sloan Kettering and we're hearing it from Mayo. Larry, what doc is she thinking of referring you to?
We didn't discuss the name of one or the other of the docs. We left it for the next visit I have with her in 2 months.
I probably would ask for Zalewski. Zelefsky. I mean, he's the head of the group.
Zelesfky.
F as in Freddie. Zel as in Larry. F as in Freddie.
SKY.
SKY. I would suggest Zalewski. You can get appointments with him. I just trying to think who, but somebody I know just went to see him. I've heard him on Cancer Care several times. He seems pretty nice when he talks on Cancer Care, and he's very smart, and he's big on some of these alternative types of radiation other than IMRT.
Okay, I appreciate that, Rick.
So, see how you do trying to get to him. Okay. Anything else? Any other discussion, or anybody want to contribute to this discussion about debulking? And we've seen several people do it. Ken and others over the last 2 or 3 years. So it does seem to be more popular, especially with the centers of excellence. So it doesn't surprise me that the both of you are having similar conversations, and probably have somewhat comparable stage of disease. Although, of course, now Jerry's had such great success, so we have to ratchet him down a little bit.
Thanks.
Hey, Jerry, you keep on like this, we're going to relegate you to Peter's low and intermediate call.
Well, if that's the way I have to go, I'm going to go.
Okay. Usually we have trouble the other way. We can't get Peter to let people go to come up to our call. But this time, I don't know. Anyway.
Well,
yeah.
I just got to keep trying.
You're doing great. God bless you. You are doing great. One last thing I just want to mention. I'm probably going to blog this out when I can get my head above water. I just want to pull this up on my email here, because this is the one. I noticed that us2 sent out a mailer today about for their prostate cancer pathways program. They have 2 events coming up, one on October 12th in Detroit, which looks pretty good. But the one that I'm really excited about is the one on November 9th. I thought it was November 2nd, but or November 3rd, but now they're saying it's November 9th. And the reason I'm excited about it is because they have a super panel. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 docs, and it includes Alicia Morgans, who I think you all know is another one of our favorite go-to docs here. And it also includes Maha Hussein, who was the person that was the principal investigator for the first intermediate hormone study. And then they've got a number of other people, a radiation oncologist, a men's sexual health. They got a genetics person talking, surgeon, and another GU medonc who I've not heard of. But anyway, I know that this might not be on the radar of a lot of people, especially if you are far away from Chicago, but if you can get to Chicago, this could be a great program. I'll probably blog it out, but if you are on the S2 mailing list, you will have seen it. And I just want to say we're endorsing it 100%. Right, Jake? You're off. You're muted. Okay, go on. What did you say?
I said, yeah, no, I agree. You're right. I'm still recovering. I'm still recovering from my experience as moderator for a whole 30 seconds. I'm exhausted.
What I'm wondering, because Jake jogs my memory on this, is I'm wondering if they're going to make it available. Attend in person or watch the online webcast, providing live audio and video. It's all free of charge. There you go, Jake.
I missed that. I didn't miss the part about the webcast, the live webcast. That's I had to check that out again. Thank you. Thank you for jogging my memory.
Okay, so
Chicago or Detroit, neither one are probably on my itinerary. So
listen, Baltimore ain't on your itinerary, so you know.
exactly.
I just realized something. Why don't you give people? We've got a couple of minutes. We'll take 2 or 3 minutes. Give people an update on your situation, because you've had a bunch of stuff going on this past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't really know where to start, to be honest. My PSA went up to 24.7. It basically doubled in a month, or not quite a month. It went up 50%. I had a liquid biopsy a couple of months ago, and they told me then that enzalutamide and abiraterone probably would no longer work or would not work, even though it did work for me for over 2 years. I'm thinking that, and I can't get an answer to this, but apparently the mutations that I have make me not susceptible to those. So I'm thinking that I must have acquired those mutations since I started treatment on the enzalutamide. I've only been on the abiraterone for about not quite 2.5 months, and my oncologist wants to give it 90 days or a little bit more before we talk about something else. Anyway, so then her suggestions are to try either pembrolizumab or Keytruda, which may have some benefit for me, or chemo. She doesn't think olaparib will work because of the ATM thing. That's why I was hoping Bill would be on the call tonight. And then I did some research on darolutamide. I know Len and somebody else has been trying it, and they got it prescribed off-label somehow. But specifically, the reason I mention that is because the liquid biopsy identified 3 mutations two of them in the AR field. And I just happened to find an article on darolutamide where they specifically mentioned those AR mutations as being, and they use big long terms, because I forget the words, but transcription, blah, 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 blah. But the basic bottom line was they think that darolutamide may very well work on someone like me with the AR mutations that I have. And I tried calling Bayer, and they won't talk to me because they have to talk to the doctor. I tried calling Foundation Medicine to ask them why it wasn't included. I do listen to you, Rick. You mentioned to call them, and I did, and they said they're going to have to get back to me. Like they wouldn't talk to me this time. They said they wanted me to be a doctor again. Last time I called, I was able to talk to a lady, and she was very helpful. I just didn't happen to ask the question about darolutamide. The reason for asking or calling them was to find out, why didn't you list darolutamide as one of the options for me that may or will not work? And they couldn't give me an answer. They did promise to call me back, but you know how that goes.
All right, I'll send an email to FMI today, not to David, because David doesn't get back to work till next week, till next week, so I don't want to bother him. But I will send an email to a couple of my people and ask them. And did you talk to CS Tech again?
Yeah, I tried. I couldn't remember the term. But I couldn't remember the CS Tech, but I asked specifically I tried to describe the activity, and they said, well, they don't like to talk to anyone except the physician.
Okay, would you do me a favor and call back and ask the CS Tech specifically?
Okay.
And tell them David Marshak referred you to them.
Okay.
Okay, seriously.
Is that true? Did David?
Yes. Yeah, it is true. David told me to tell you to ask for CS Tech.
Okay. Well, that's who I talked to last week, and they were very helpful, but this time they didn't want to pass me through.
Right. Well, you ask them for CS Tech. That David Marshak suggested that you need to talk to CS Tech and to put them through, and ask them the question. And if you don't get anywhere, let me know, and I'll send a letter to the people that are in David's group who are covering for him.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to call in tomorrow if I get a chance.
Yeah. As far as Bayer is concerned, I lost my person at Bayer, but I'm happy to try and get to Bayer and find out who the person that handles, I don't know who's replaced her, but there is a person that handles patient advocacy there.
Right.
And to tell them that, we need some help. So I'm going to put Bayer on my list. Maybe I'll try and dig around for that tomorrow.
Okay. Well, as I said, they did say they would have someone call me back in 24 to 48 hours, but you know how that goes. I wanted to find out specifically about the overcoming enzalutamide resistance, which is that email that I sent to that link I sent to you and Len, where they mentioned darolutamide in my particular ARs, and what the status of the research on that is, and also about the metastatic cancer, metastatic CRPC approval. We know it's approved for non-metastatic, but it's not approved yet for CRPC. And I just wanted to find out, are they even testing it?
Well, I wouldn't go there with Bayer. They're not going to talk to you about trial. They're not going to talk to you about what trials they may do. If you want to find out whether they're testing it, go to clinicaltrials.gov and it'll list all of the darolutamide trials.
Right.
Here and overseas. So you're better off doing your own work, your own research there on clinicaltrials.gov and putting in darolutamide.
Right.
Right? You don't need to bother them necessarily with that question. one thing that you left out in your summary is bicalutamide.
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, I had tried bicalutamide way back when my Luprons first started failing. We tried bicalutamide, Casedex, and it worked for about a year, and then it stopped. So that's when I went to the Xtandi. But this foundation liquid biopsy suggestion was they said, again, Xtandi, Zytiga probably won't work for me, but bicalutamide would. So I said, okay, that's a little strange, but apparently there's a different pathway that bicalutamide attacks. And so I mentioned it to my doctor, and she said, no, we already tried bicalutamide and it didn't work. So I had a whole bunch of questions, and that was just one of many that I had for her. But I'm going to pursue that further with her and say, why can't we re-challenge? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But and I've been doing research trying to find out about re-challenging with bicalutamide or any anti-androgen, and there's not a whole lot of literature that I've been able to find on that.
I hate to belabor this, Jake. It's exactly the question that I've been having. Is that I also went through bicalutamide, and then my PSA was rising, and they stopped the Casedex, and my PSA went down for a little while again for years.
Right.
And now it's going up, and I wanted to discuss, like, does anybody know about re-challenging? Because if the disease is mutating, it may be bicalutamide sensitive again.
Exactly. That's my thought. Go ahead, Larry.
That was it. That was it.
Larry,
I had the same path of thinking.
Larry,
have you talked to your doctor about re-challenging?
We didn't get to that. We were stuck on the radiation thing and the Zytiga thing.
Larry, have you been sequenced?
They don't only genetic. They didn't have the original biopsy. They didn't grab the right enough material, weren't enough slides. So she said that not until there's something that she can get a hold of.
That was good, by the way.
And it doesn't. You still don't show having anything that they can do.
Not right now, no.
Okay, so
my scans were good.
So let me make a suggestion. And what's your PSA right now?
Well, it was 0.19. It went to 0.35. We did the scans, and now it's down to 0.19 again. We're going to retest it.
Okay.
It's not in that place where they're going to show up.
You don't have enough PSA for a liquid biopsy either.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, look, we got to hang up because I've got to close this room and reopen it so we don't give Jake the horrible task of trying to edit this session out from the next session. And I've got to do a couple of things before the next one starts. In fact, I've got to open the new room almost immediately. So,
Rick, you wanted to give me Ken Anderson's phone number.
I'll send you an email later tonight.
Okay, no problem.
I've written it down, Jerry, to send you an email to connect you later tonight.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you on the Larry Fong show.
Yeah. I can open the meeting for you, Rick, if you want me to.
What's that?
You want me to open the new meeting for you?
Oh, that'd be great. Do you mind? Because I just want to go grab a drink and something. Thanks a million.
Jake, good night, everybody. I just wanted to tell you that I hope one of these things you're reaching at are really going to work, because to me, it's like kind of a scary place, and I wish you the best.
You too, Larry. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Good night.